Last time on Crafting Stars, the Westmore Makeup Dynasty Part 1, we told the story of George Westmore, who traveled from Britain to America with nothing more than talent and a dream. George knew that movies were the 20th century art form, and he knew that he could make them better. He convinced the studios that they needed makeup departments, but more importantly, he convinced the stars that they couldn't live without his talents. His son Perce in many ways usurped his father, creating a legacy around their family name. Perce built up the power, and he realized that his father George had no place in that empire that he was building. Was his dynasty in jeopardy? Perce was cutting his father out, but the Westmore name was being undermined at every turn by his twin brother Ern. Will Perce be able to turn things around? Stay tuned for Crafting Stars, the Westmore Makeup Dynasty Part 2, to find out how the Westmores turn around this calamity and transform themselves into the greatest family of movie makeup artists in history.
Oh no, not again. Hey movie lovers, I'm Adam.
And I'm Charlotte.
And welcome to Perf Damage.
We're a movie-obsessed husband and wife team who work in the film industry. I oversee film restoration at the oldest studio in Hollywood.
And I bring the inside track from film development and production. And we love to explore the hidden tales of movies past and present.
So join us for a cinematic journey like no other.
From classic gems to examining the art of the double feature. This is Perf Damage.
Popcorn popped, wine at the ready. Let's press play. All right, so we're going to tell the tale of the Westmore family, which starts with
George,
the dad.
George is the father.
And then, how many sons?
He has 6 sons. Mont is the oldest.
Okay, got Mont.
Then he has the 2 twins, Ern
Perce.
and Perce.
And Ern.
Wally, Bud, and then Frank.
All right.
So let's talk about Ern now. So Ern, like we said, the most naturally talented of the group.
Mm-hmm. And the twin to Perce. The sort of head of the
also
family.
the most reckless of them.
Really?
Yes. He was a part of this group called the Bundy Boys.
Well, of course, he'd be the natural artist that was just sort of aloof.
Absolutely.
And, you know.
Plus, he did everything he could to tear down the Westmore name because he knew that it meant so much to Perce.
So he was
a
So in a way, he was also like George.
Yes, right. They both had elements of George. Yeah. Wow, that's a really good point.
Yeah, they both had the different sides.
Yeah, so it manifested itself in Ern in a big way. Ern was part of this group called the Bundy Street Boys. They were the original
Never heard of that.
Rat Pack in Hollywood before the Rat Pack. It was John Barrymore, John Carradine, W.C. Fields. Yeah.
So the Rat Pack or like the Hollywood vampires?
Yeah, they were more like the Hollywood vampires, honestly.
So they just hung out and partied?
Yeah, they were called the Bundy Street Boys because they hung out at this artist house on Bundy Street for the most part.
Which is in the Hollywood Hills.
It was a 24-hour party. People would just roll in and roll out. And their thing was that they liked... Errol Flynn was part of it, too.
Of course.
Yes.
They ever party on the Zaka?
They did.
Shut up.
Yes. I have a Zaka story that happened just before the Zaka story we told.
All right. Well, after this episode, I'm going to need to tell... You're going to need to tell me the Zaka story.
It's good, too.
I love some Zaka stories.
Yeah.
That's Errol Flynn's boat, by the way.
Yeah. That was in...
the Orson Welles.
Lady from Shanghai.
Yeah, Lady from Shanghai.
Lady from Shanghai.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Bundy Boys, they were epic rapscallions, basically.
Yeah.
They were drunk on set. They would drive into set together, and W.C. Fields had a bar built into the back of his car. And they would be swilling scotch at 7 a.m.
Oh, my God. Well, to be fair, it wasn't morning if you've been up all night.
That's true. They never went to sleep, right?
Okay, I think we need to do an episode on the Bundy Boys.
That could happen.
I think that needs to happen.
That could happen.
That needs to happen. This sounds fun.
Yeah.
Like, I just kick back and listen. This sounds good. All right, so that was Ern that was part of the Bundy Boys.
Ern's part of the Bundy Boys.
Hellraiser.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, he was the head of RKO from 1929 to 1931. He ended up losing that job. This is funny, though. He ended up losing that job in 1931.
He lost his job, and it's funny?
Well, yeah, because...
No, yeah.
Because of what happened, though. So
what had happened was.
Yeah. In 1931, he went on a bender for 2 weeks and didn't show up to work, and so they just finally had enough of him, even though he was epically talented, and everybody was like, "My gosh, this guy's amazing."
Yeah, we got shit to do.
But later that same year, 1931, he wins the very first Academy Award for makeup effects.
Oh, that must have pissed
for
Kurtz
Cimarron.
off.
Yeah.
Oh, for Cimarron.
For Cimarron, yeah.
Oh,
and it wasn't even called the Academy Award at the time. It was called the Academy Cup.
He won the makeup cup.
And it was it was a special award given. They didn't give another one until 1968. And so, yeah, this was well before makeup effects were ever recognized
so
at the Academy.
Won that A cup.
Yeah, so he won the cup.
The A cup.
The A cup.
The Academy Cup.
Yeah.
It wasn't the Oscar Cup yet.
No, wasn't the O cup.
No, it wasn't Oscar yet.
Yeah. So, yeah, isn't that crazy?
So crazy.
So crazy. So crazy.
What am I going to say? Like, no, it's
Yeah,
not really that crazy.
boring. But there is a downside to that too.
How was there a downside to winning the first?
Well, in 1931, 2 weeks after he won the Academy Cup, George Westmore, his dad, committed suicide. So
he thought he
was internalized that for the rest of his life, and it tore him up inside.
Well, because that happened after Peirce blocked him from getting the one job and the Paramount job.
It wasn't just because he
but all
won
that
the
stuff
Academy
builds.
Cup.
And didn't you say that his wife had also left him?
Yes, he had married a young wife.
Yeah, who had recently left him, and then
And
that
she just left him,
happened, and yeah, I mean it snowballs.
It was a culmination of a bunch of things.
Yeah.
But Ern always saw it as his fault, unfortunately.
Poor Ern.
Yeah, and it tore him up, and he had, trouble for the rest of his life because of it. But, he bounced back. In 1935 to 37, he was the head of Fox makeup. And then, I got to mention, this is my favorite part, though. He did makeup for Mom and Dad.
Kroger Bab!
Yes, Kroger Bab.
That's so cool.
Yeah. At a certain point...
So you're not going to say we did a Kroger Bab two-parter here?
Yeah, oh yeah, we are.
If you want to hear more about it.
Listen to our two-parter on Kroger Bab.
Who the hell's Kroger Bab?
Yeah.
John Waters loves him. That's who he is.
Yeah, that's who he is.
Anyhow, so he did Mom and Dad.
Yeah, so he ended up moving out of Hollywood because of all of his friends that he couldn't get away from and the bad influences they were on him. He sobered up and he moved to Chicago, and that's where he met Kroger Bab.
Oh.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's cool.
And then, so he did makeup for Mom and Dad, and then they did a movie called Why Men Leave, is what it's called.
Why Men Leave? Oh,
Yes.
yeah, that was another one of those.
Right, yeah. So we highlighted this film in our Kroger Bab episode, but Ern is actually in it.
That's
which
right.
is really interesting.
That's right.
So you actually get to see Ern on film.
I know that all of you are here to see if I can prove what I have always contended, that there isn't a woman in the world who can't be made to look more beautiful.
And he's demonstrating...
For a long time.
Yeah, the whole last act of the film is Ern demonstrating...
Yeah, the different face shapes.
Yeah, different face shapes. It's something that he and Peirce came up with together, and it kind of became the basis of the entire Westmore makeup journey.
Yeah. What sucks about that is they should have not been cheap and shot that part in color because it's all in black and white. So they're showing makeup looks in black and white. And it's not as impressive as it could be.
Right.
Because makeup for black and white is different than makeup for color. And it seems like he was doing makeup for color.
First and most essential, a woman must be honest with herself. She must know her face shape before she can create the illusion of proper proportion. In recent years, we've simplified this problem. We now think and talk in terms of 5 basic shaped faces, namely the oval, the round, the square, the oblong, and the triangle. We'll take the oval type first, since the oval is the ideal face. I should like to explain to you exactly what we expect to do by using these charts as illustration. The oval is the shape of an egg, which stands on end. The forehead is slightly broader than the chin or the jawline. Even though this woman has a perfectly shaped face, its beauty can very easily be destroyed through the incorrect application of makeup and hairstyle. Note here in this incorrect makeup, the hair is dressed low. The brow is arched high. The rouge has been applied in a circle. And the lip has been made up high. This, in contrast, is the correct application of makeup and hairstyle. The hair has been distributed more evenly. The rouge has been blended back up to the temple, down under the eye, slightly down the cheek line. The arch of the brow is more natural. The lip has been made up to follow the natural lip line. Here, pictorially, we can see the amount of distortion and correction through incorrect and correct application. A perfectly beautiful oval face destroyed through the incorrect application of makeup and hairstyling. Here is Miss Oval Face looking her best.
But it's really interesting to see him on film.
It is. It's very cool.
At this time, too, after that film, Kroger Babb produced a TV show for him that ended up going national, the Errol Westmore Glamour Hour, and it was a daytime show.
We didn't talk about that in the Kroger Babb thing.
No, we didn't. No.
That's the first time I've heard about that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
have you seen clips or anything from it?
There's images, but I don't think, because it was telecine, so I don't know that. I have never seen anything.
What network? Let's find this.
Yeah. It was.
Let's unarchive it.
Yeah.
Let's get it transferred. Let's save this puppy. All right, so we've talked about George. We've talked about Mont, Purse, Earn.
Right, and that brings us to Wally Westmore.
Wally Westmore, the one that I know the name of because he's on every Paramount movie ever.
Paramount.
He's like the Edith Head of Paramount.
Yeah, he was at Paramount for over 30 years.
Yeah, I know, and his name's on freaking everything.
Yeah, but isn't that the joke, though?
It is the joke.
His name is on everything, but the joke is...
Actresses would say that Wally Westmore was credited with doing their makeup, and they'd never met the guy.
They'd never seen him on set.
But that's because at the time, a lot of the department heads were the ones that were being credited. So you may be watching something and think, oh, Edith Head, she did all this stuff. She was running the department, and yeah, she had her hands in everything. And I'm not saying she's not talented, but the day-to-day... some of the stuff.
Right, and she probably wasn't there on set.
Let's not even talk about Sabrina. Anyways, so Wally apparently took it to the next level.
Yeah. I mean, he was, I guess, an administrator. Wally really liked to play golf.
Oh, so he hung out with Bing Crosby.
Yes. So Wally also didn't want to be a makeup guy. This is, okay, remember when he... got put up for the job at Paramount by Purse?
Yes, when he was 20.
Purse had to convince him to go into makeup. He knew how to do it because he grew up in the family, but he had to convince him. He wanted to be a businessman. He wanted to be an investment banker. And he came up with a number. He said, Purse, if you can guarantee me that I earn this much money a year, then I will do what you want me to do. And so he said, no problem. He ended up signing a contract that was over $10,000 more than he asked what his magic number was.
To the Westmore.
Yep. So that's really where he came from. And yeah, he wasn't one of those guys that hobnobbed with stars a lot. He wasn't a Purse. He wasn't an Earn.
Yeah.
He wasn't a George.
He's boring.
He was a business
Wally.
guy. But
Bing,
like you mentioned Bing, that was one of his best friends.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, I mean, you say golf, and that time... by the time Bing was making White Christmas, he didn't want to be on set. He just wanted to go play golf. And if they said, we have to stay late to do blah, 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 he'd say, nope. And he would leave and go play golf, which is crazy, but...
yeah, and Bing was a business guy, too.
He was.
Like, he was more interested in being a businessman than he was in actually being an actor.
Bing made so many smart decisions, but this isn't a Bing Crosby episode, but it could be. Right? Am I right?
But, okay, so let's talk about Wally, though. One of the first films that he made,
incredible.
The first film that he was credited on was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, after he took over from
Which is
Paramount.
mind-blowing.
Yeah.
That makeup, still to this day, is impressive.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's all done through makeup effects. Like, it shows that
It's
had
done through light
a
effects.
mastery of knowledge about what makeup would show up under what exposure.
Yeah, this was all done by changing the color of the light. So it's
Yeah.
going from, I think, red to green, I think it was. Still, you watch it and you think, how the hell did they do this?
Well, they didn't want to transition. They didn't want to do like time lapse like
No.
they did for the Wolfman or
No,
something like
that's
that.
what's
So,
incredible.
Yeah. And Wolfman was made later, so
Yeah, much later.
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this was
It's wild.
it happened in front of your eyes. It made you
does.
believe.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This kind of effect still holds up today. Blows my mind every time I see it.
Yeah, so Wally, like we said, got credited with like a ton of stuff, right?
Like, yeah.
War of the Worlds, Vertigo, Double Indemnity, Sullivan's Travels, just to name a few. Just to name a few.
His IMDb page,
Yeah, it's insane.
incredible.
Who knows how many of those he actually worked on, but
Who knows?
yeah.
He's running the
He
department.
was running the department. He had 80 people under him doing
Look,
makeup.
man.
So
He did Dr. Jekyll.
he did. He was actually on set for that. There's pictures.
He could sit back and do whatever he wants after that one
That's right.
for 30
For
years.
30 years.
Wally, you did good.
Yep.
You did good.
Then that brings us to Bud Westmore.
Bud Westmore, yes.
Bud Westmore was the monster guy.
He was.
He was the head of Universal for almost 40 years. He was the last one to be let go from the studio job because Universal took longer to let people go than the rest of the studios
During the
did.
studio
Yep.
system
Meltdown.
dismantling
Yeah.
of the 50s.
Yep. Yeah, he actually held on to his job till
Till the
1971
Yeah, okay.
into television. So Bud and Frank, his younger brother, we haven't
Right.
talked about
What?
Frank yet, but
Can't mention people we don't even know.
Bud and Frank were much younger than the first four boys. And so when George ended up committing suicide, Bud ended up going to live with Wally, and then Frank ended up going to live with Mont. Back to Bud, sorry.
Back to Bud.
I digress. I just kind of wanted to explain because they're so much younger than the other brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's talk about why is he the monster guy?
Because he was at Universal.
He was at Universal. and
When did he start at Universal?
he started in 1947. So after the initial cycle.
Right.
But right when they kind of were doing the big resurgence with Abbott and Costello and all that kind of stuff, monsters were hot again, and they were doing like a lot of sequels. One of the biggest things that he ever did was he sculpted the creature from the Black Lagoon. For years, he took credit for creating the creature from the Black Lagoon. But we have recently found out that that was Millicent Patrick, who was one of the makeup
A
artists.
lady.
Yeah, one of the makeup artists that worked for him.
That's right. There are pictures of her
Of her
designing it.
actually designing the creature.
That's right.
Yeah.
Creature designed by a lady.
So, but he actually did the sculpting,
Yeah.
which is, that is one of the grand achievements of that period for makeup.
Science couldn't explain it, but there it was, alive in the deep, deep waters of the Amazon. A throwback to a creature that had existed 100 million years ago, immensely strong and destructive. A woman's beauty, the bait that brought it out of its lair.
But in addition to that, Spartacus, Touch of Evil. I mean, the guy was at Universal forever, so he ended up working on so many big films because of it. But I honestly think that the best thing that he ever did had nothing to do with the movies. In 1957, Mattel, the toy company, calls up Bud Westmore, and they say, hey, we'd love you to design the makeup for our new doll that we're about to put out. That doll was Barbie.
He designed the makeup?
He designed the makeup for the initial Barbie, Bud Westmore. Isn't that amazing?
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's probably his crowning achievement because that Barbie will live forever.
Yeah, I mean,
You
she's
know?
hotter now than ever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so awesome.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Yeah.
By a freaking Westmore.
That-
Barbie, you're beautiful. You make me feel my Barbie doll is really real. Barbie's small and so petite. Her clothes and figure look so neat. Her dancing outfit rings the bell. At parties she will cast a spell. Purses, hats, and gloves galore. And all the gadgets gals adore.
Barbie dressed for swimmin' fun is only $3. Her lovely fashions range from $1 to $5. Look for Barbie wherever dolls are sold.
Someday I'm gonna be exactly like you. Till then I know just what I'll do. Barbie, beautiful Barbie, I'll make believe that I am you.
You can tell it's Mattel. It's swell.
Another thing that Bud did, though, Bud and Wally got together and they formed one of the first companies that did prosthetics for veterans, people that came back from the war, missing fingers or arms. They would do these elaborate, articulate prosthetics for them. And they started their own company doing that. And they were the first people.
So not just something that didn't
not
move.
Just, it wasn't just like a wooden
just a
hand
prosthetic.
or whatever.
Yeah, it was one that actually worked.
Yeah.
These guys, man.
These guys do it. They do it all.
They do it all.
So that brings us to Frank, the baby Westmore. Frank is the youngest. By the time Frank got into the game, there were no places for him to go. And not to mention that all of the studio heads were his brothers already. So there just weren't any studios left for him to occupy. Mm-hmm. So he always was like, okay, I'm going to go make my name in the freelance world. He saw the future. He also was the first one to get into television. A lot of them thought they were too good for television.
Yeah, that was a common
It was a big
thought
deal back then. Yeah, the movies will come back. Don't worry, you know.
They did.
They did. Movies
never went away.
Never went away.
Let's not even get started.
But, you know, he went freelance. Ultimately, that ended up helping all of them. After they ended up losing their positions at the studios, they called up Frank for work because he was the freelance guy.
Right.
And then at that point, he kind of became the de facto head of the family, because he was the one doling out all the work. But he ended up working on the 10 Commandments, which is a movie very close to your heart.
Yeah, 1956. This division.
In fact, he almost, well, Cecil B. DeMille was trying to hook him up with his niece. She ended up not going for him and going for one of the actors on set instead, and that he didn't want. He was very close to Cecil B. DeMille for the rest of his career. He also got really close with Spencer Tracy. They did The Mountain together. You know, remember that movie?
It's another VistaVision movie. I do know it.
Yeah. But I do want to leave you with one Frank story.
Please do.
So Frank was working one of his very first jobs. He was not the head makeup guy on set at this point. He was just learning, and he got this job from one of his brothers. He was working a Dorothy Lamour film called Beyond the Blue Horizon. It was a, Dorothy Lamour Island film where she's with a chimp, as she was in so many of those films back then. This chimp was a star at the time. His name was Jiggs the Chimp, and he really liked Dorothy Lamour. And that became a real problem on set. A problem that fell into Frank's lap, unfortunately. And so he had to come up with a solution to cover up the kind of embarrassment that was happening anytime Dorothy...
To cover up how much the chimp liked.
Yes, how much he enjoyed being near Dorothy Lamour.
I think we're all reading between the lines here. Okay.
So he's looking for solutions. He's got to come up with something to hide this.
Hide his
enjoyment of Dorothy Lamour. And so the first thing he does is he takes a Speedo and he glues a bunch of hair on it and he puts it on the chimp. And the second Jiggs gets next to Dorothy Lamour, he rips the Speedo off and they're back to square one. And then he tried, actually gluing hair on to the chimp in his nether regions to cover it up. And anytime that he got near Dorothy Lamour, he would just rip the hair off of his crotch and throw it at her. So that became a problem. So ultimately, he ended up just having to paint it black. He took black tar and actually had to paint the chimp to black it out so that you couldn't see it. Because it didn't play on screen.
Can you see it on screen?
We could watch that movie and find out.
I don't want to, but maybe somebody else can.
Yeah, and at that point, he kind of, this was like one of his first jobs, and he's like, man, I don't know if I made good choices in my life. I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Adam, one of my coworkers has a giant photo of Dorothy Lamour sitting on a rock next to a chimp in her office. I mean, it's a giant photo. I used to actually have it in my office like a decade ago.
Was that chimp's name Jiggs?
I don't know.
Now you know the story behind that picture and why she doesn't want to be there.
Oh my God, I'm going to tell my coworker. They're probably going to take that photo down.
Jiggs just enjoyed her a little too much. I think that's what it was.
We'll have to put like a censor.
You just censor bar over it.
Over the photo. Woo! All right.
Well, that's all
monkey junk.
Well, we ended on a high note with the monkey junk.
That's it. That's how we're ending this.
Yeah, well, I can't think of a better way to end it. Can you?
No.
No, I can't. This episode is not for kids.
Oh, man. There are so many good Westmore tales, and we have only told a few.
We didn't even get into their salon here in Hollywood.
Yeah, they opened a salon.
It was...
There is a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for the Westmores.
Yes, there is. There's a whole, backstab with Ern where he goes and works for Max Factor and sells out his part of the salon. I mean...
So much.
Yeah. Then he
so much stuff.
He moved to Europe and tried to start up a bunch of salons based on their salon.
What?
Yeah. I mean, it gets.
So if you want to hear more about the Westmores, just let us know. Contact us. Let us know. Leave a comment. Anyways, thanks for joining us as we chat about the Westmores and hang out with Asta. And she's going to air lick some more and have some nice crunchy toasty wine.
Yeah. Crunchy roasty.
Crunchy roasty. Yeah, I'm a little crunchy toasty. So I think we'll end this now. And we'll see you guys next time. So thanks for joining us.
Here on Perf Damage.
Adam, one of my coworkers has a giant photo of Dorothy Lamour. Excuse me.
Dorothy Lamour.
Cut that.